I'm going to do a new video on the difference between rotary and coils and which one is better for lining. Um, for those that don't know the difference or don't know what each machine is, I'll explain really quickly. This is a rotary machine. It has a motor, and inside that motor it has a little piston that goes in a circle and it attaches and makes it go up and down. Okay? This is what a lot of the guys in prison, they usually find a motor, attach a needle to it, and they create this. Okay? This is a coil machine. It has coils. Okay? And all it does is bring the coil down and lets it go. So it works as a magnet. Okay? Needle goes up and down. That's it. A lot more moving parts, but that's kind of the idea. So what makes a good line? Because everybody thinks, hey, if it's a line, it's a line. Well, we're talking about a good line. Okay? What's a good line? That is the width of the line has to be important, has to be saturated, has to be crisp, and you know that's what makes a good line. No skips in it. It doesn't get different weights and different depths. It's got to be all those things perfect. Okay. And sometimes with these rotaries, they create lines that are very blurry. They create not very saturated. You can always tell when I look at photos, online. I can always tell, okay, that they're using a rotary to line because you can just tell it just doesn't have that crispness to it. It's like they had to go over the line a lot of times, and you can tell. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down the list on what the advantages and disadvantages of each machine is, because obviously they're not the same. So with a rotary machine, some of the good things about it is they're very light. They can go from 1 ounce to 3 ounces, which is pretty light compared to coil machines. Well, what does that matter? Well, if you're doing a 10-hour tattoo, you want something that's going to be easy on your hands, especially for some of these older artists. They deal with arthritis. They deal with a lot of physical problems. So a machine that's lighter, less vibrations does help. Okay. There's no adjustments to it. There's nothing you can do other than plug it in. That's it. You plug it in, it's going to work. That's really it. There's not a lot you have to do to it. It's very reliable, and that's kind of why everybody is using these things. From every artist out there, all the fancy artists, they're doing all these beautiful pieces. They're using some type of rotary, direct drive, something like that. Okay. So that's some of the good things about a rotary machines. Okay, they're fairly you can get one anywhere from a good one $200, $300, or some of the higher ends like the Dan Cubans $700, $800. What are the bad things about it? Well, first of all, you have to understand the science of this thing. Okay, like I explained in the motor, it is going in a circle. Okay, and it is creating this to go up and down. Okay, well, what is happening is when that needle is coming down, okay, into that circle, it is slowing down as it gets to the skin, sits in the skin, and then back up around again. Okay, so it's coming like this in a circular motion. Okay, so what does that tell you? That's telling you that it's going slower as it goes to the skin, meaning it's going to put the ink in slower, and then it sits in the skin while it's doing that circle shape. Okay. So that's why you get more snags with the rotary machine. And you can get more trauma because it's sitting in the skin longer. So in those two aspects, you risk overworking the skin, and the ink is going slower. So you have to layer it, okay? Which is good if you're doing maybe a portraits. These portrait artists, they're doing a portrait on the grandma, and they don't want to give grandma a shadow, give her, a mustache. So that's the advantages to rotary. So what is some of the bad stuff? Like I just showed you, the science of it. It's just going to put ink in slower. It's the way it is. There's no give on a lot of these. This one has no give. I mean, you could put some tissue up right here, maybe help, but for the most part, a lot of rotary machines don't have any give. And even the ones that try to create give really don't do a good job of it. Okay, what is give? Give is like a safety mechanism, meaning when it's going, the needle is going in too deep, it backs off. Okay, this one will not back off. I mean, you could etch your initials on someone's, bone if you wanted to. Uh, so sometimes when you have guys like Little B say, oh, rotaries hit hard, hit harder. Well, they don't really hit harder. They just have no give. So there's more potential for damage, which is why a lot of times you'll get blowouts are very common with rotaries. Um, and like I said, because of that science I just showed you, you're gonna have to. A lot of times you can't hit a one pass with a rotary. You're gonna have to go back and then go back again because it's very hard to get a one pass. And if you have to run this machine up, past 10 volts, 12 volts, it's gonna heat up the motor. You start creating a lot of vibrations, which kind of gets rid of all the advantages you had. Um, and because of the way that the needle spends time in the skin, you have to make sure you stretch the skin much better. With the rotary, a stretch is so important. Uh, you're gonna have to stretch, especially if you're dealing with somebody's side that has a lot of stretchy skin, some of the chest areas. A rotary can be a nightmare for some of those type of body parts. Forearm, calf, somewhere tight where the skin is, you can get away with it. But a lot of times you're going to overwork the skin. You're going to have to stretch your ass off. Your tattoos are going to take a lot longer. So that's kind of some of the negatives to a rotary machine. Okay. Now, what are the advantages of a coil machine? Well, compared to the science I just told you about the rotary, a coil is very simple. It's going down and coming back up. Okay. It's picking up force as it's going towards the skin, deposits the ink, and then comes back up. There's no circular motion going on. It's putting the ink in quicker and getting out of the skin quicker, which means less trauma, and you're going to get better lines. You don't have to stretch as much either. So a lot of times, people do the 3-point stretch. When you're using rotary, you got to use a 3-point stretch. But sometimes that's not always the best way to line. There are other ways you can line with your hands that are a little more comfortable. Okay? So if sometimes when you're dealing with these tattoos, you don't want to spend, if you're doing a tribal tattoo or some type of Polynesian and you're going to use a rotary, it's going to be a nightmare. I mean, you're going to take forever. But with the coil, it's quicker. It's going to hit that. You're going to get those one pass lines. And the other aspect of it is, it does have a give system. All these springs work as a give, okay? So you won't get those same blowouts all the time. I mean, it's up to the artist, of course, but I'm just saying in general, coils, you're gonna get less blowouts and it's gonna back off when it's getting too deep and it's gonna protect you. And you don't have to stretch as hard. Okay, so what's some of the bad things about a coil? Well, you're gonna have to learn all this stuff. You're going to have to get used to when it's not working right. If a spring, you have to tune it up every now and then. And sometimes it'll work great one time, and the next time you plug it in, it might, give you something else. And you're going to have to learn that. But it takes time. It's just a matter of getting used to it. These machines can be heavy. They can run, 7, 8, 9 ounces. I mean, and if you're doing a long tattoo, it can really wear on you. If you're lining for an extended period of time, it can hurt your hands and wear you out. So that's some of the negatives. So in general, what I'm trying to say is if you're struggling with your line work, if you're not getting those crisp lines and you're using a rotary, I'd say you need to go a different route. If you're going over your lines over and over again, you need to do something different. And I'm telling you right now, stop watching these other artists. Stop watching, these famous guys that are doing all this stuff with the rotaries. Listen, these guys, they can get salt and make a portrait out of it. I mean, they can use anything. And you have to remember, they're getting money from these rotary companies. They're sending them their machine and here, we'll pay you money. And they charge, $250 an hour. So yeah, if the tattoo takes 20 hours, hey, they're making a fortune. Who cares if it goes quickly? But the rest of us that, dealing with people on a budget, you don't want to spend more time than you have to, more pain that you're putting someone through. So what you want to do is you need to find yourself a good coil builder. Find you a tattoo artist that builds coils, uh, and buy from them. Don't buy the cheap China shit. Uh, the main thing about these coils is you have to have a good base, the steel, the coils. All that's very important. That's what's going to absorb all those vibrations. So don't go that route. Make sure you get a good builder, um, and just practice with it. Uh, and you'll see just how much easier it'll it'll uh, uh, it'll help with your lining. So in essence, I was a Rotary person from the start. I loved Rotaries, and in the past year, I haven't touched my Rotary, in over a year, and I don't see myself going back. I just think my life is so much easier. Tattoos are so much easier with the coil, and there's so much misinformation out there about the two types of machines. I even started shading with the coil machine. It's just so much easier and so much less trauma. Like I said, it's just in the science of it. Now I don't know if some of the new rotary science has come up with anything else that's better. I don't know. But just from my experiences, you're trying to find this rotary machine that can hit like a coil machine, and they can't find it. Maybe someday in the future they'll come up with something. But as of right now, if you have problems with your lining, if you need some improvements, try a coil, and feel free to like this video. Please provide comments below. I'd like to do an extended video on lining, some ways to improve. But if it just depends on the comments below, good or bad, disagree, questions, whatever. Go ahead and put it below. Thanks. Bye.